that the first openly practicing Muslim community wasn't established in Mecca or Medina, but was established in Africa, in Ethiopia, under Najashi.
Yes.
That was the first time Muslims were allowed to practice Islam openly and freely. And at that time, Mecca didn't accept Islam, and Medina didn't even exist. But on the shores of Africa, we had a Muslim community. So the story of Islam as we know it today starts in Africa even. So all of that, I kind of wrap it in the first half of the presentation,
Wow.
and then the rest of it goes into the history of Islam in West Africa, because most Black Muslims are West African descent,
Yeah, yeah.
in the Americas and in Africa. And we have nations such as, for example, Nigeria has nearly 100 million Muslims, more than the whole of the Arabian Peninsula.
Wow.
And that's just one country from Africa's 54 countries. Or, well, the numbers always change. But yeah, 50 something nations in Africa. Just one of them has more Muslims than the whole of the Arabian Peninsula combined.
Wow.
And I talk about how Islam entered there, because when Black people go to masjids or when Black people enter certain spaces, people assume they recently come into Islam.
Yeah, yeah.
When we have reports from northeast Nigeria that they accepted Islam from emissaries sent by Omar bin Abdul Aziz. That's in the 8th century.
Yeah.
We have on the other side Ghana and Takrur, which were the main empires in West Africa before colonization 1,000 years ago, in what is now Senegal and Mali. They were the first Muslim nations in West Africa. They officially accepted Islam, the kings of those nations, 1,000 years ago. And already before they accepted Islam, we have reports of scholars from the south of Spain coming in saying that we met the king of Ghana. He wasn't Muslim, but the minister of the economy was. A lot of the ministers in his parliament were, and there was already in his capital city 12 masjids at the time when the king wasn't even Muslim. And the king converted to Islam 1,000 years ago. So that means it has a over 1,000-year history within that region, which is something that a lot of people don't know or don't talk about. So when you see a West African Muslim, don't assume that they just recently came into the deen. A lot of them are descended from scholars who have been Muslim for over 1,000 years.
Yeah.
And even the most, and I'm talking a lot, but
No,
I'll end it on this point. Even the most famous slave narrative that we know in the West is the story of Roots. Kunta Kinte. Anyone that doesn't know Roots, Roots was it was released in the 60s, and it was about this slave from Gambia called Kunta Kinte who was taken to America, etc. Kunta Kinte was Muslim. And what was interesting is that if you read the book Roots, Alex Haley, who's the descendant of Kunta Kinte, narrates that Kunta Kinte's grandfather was Kairoba Kunta Kinte. He came from Mauritania. He was a scholar from Mauritania. And he was named after his grandfather's tribe, the Kunta. The Kunta tribe were one of the oldest tribes in West Africa, and they're the descendants of Uqba bin Nafi, who was a Sahaba who conquered Africa with his uncle Amr bin As. So Amr bin As conquered Egypt and settled in Fustat, which grew into Cairo. His nephew Uqba bin Nafi went on into Tunisia and established a place called Karawan. And that became a center for learning in Africa. And from there, the Maliki Madhab, etc., spread throughout. His descendant, Fatima Fihri, went to Morocco and opened a masjid, which they called Masjid Qarawin, the masjid of the people from Karawan.
Interesting.
And that became, as we know, Qarawin University, the oldest university in the world. Kunta Kinte is from the same tribe as Fatima Fihri, because they're all descended from Uqba bin Nafi. So that's a hidden history there that a lot of people don't know.